Hey, hi. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining in. Today we have an exciting guest here with us, Mark, who lives closer to where I live, not so far from Munich. You will know more about Mark in a while. But I'm really excited to have you, Mark, because now the industry, most of the people in the industry, they talk about the Algorand chain. They talk about the wonderful advertisement that you guys pulled off recently, and you are the man of the moment, right? I mean, glad to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today, Mark.
Well, thanks for having me, Vijay. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I mean, for guys, I mean, I've done a proper study about you. So you have a great experience coming from Android, right? You were an executive at Android, and you were advisors to a lot of blockchain companies out there, AI companies out there, and coming from a typical traditional industry, right? I mean, coming from Android to Web3 to AI. Could you please sum it up? It's been a riveting journey, right? I hope it's a great journey for you. Could you please share that to the audience here?
Sure, there's actually a lot of similarities between what I was doing on Android and what I'm doing now as the CMO of the Algorand Foundation. I started, at Google at the beginning of Android, before the first Android phone was launched, and I was running marketing for Android. And so the key to success for Android was the power of the developer ecosystem. And so a lot of my time went into nurturing and helping the developer ecosystem, and actually frankly turning the ecosystem into an army. So we used to talk about the Android army, and the Android army would go to battle against the iOS army. And so every single time iPhone came out with a feature, Android army would say, well, we've had this feature for 5 years on Android. And so a lot of that was like turning like the community into like a religion, and so I feel a little bit the same way about Algorand and the Algorand developer system. We have a very active community, lots of developers. They feel very passionate about Algorand. And so helping them, working with them, listening to them feels very similar to the work I did on Android.
Oh yeah, I can still remember the early days of Android Army. I was even myself part of that Android Army per se, right? It
Great.
was back in days. Yes, we go on like a battlefield where we fight against the iOS guys out there, right? Saying, "Oh yeah, we have had that 3 years back. We have had that feature 2 years back." So those are good olden days, and I'm really glad that I'm speaking with one of those guys who was actually pivotal, who was actually at the core of building this army. And I'm really sure that you're gonna mimic the exact same thing, or even excel better than that Android army thing here.
And
Uh,
it's interesting because it used to be like, I mean, one of the key differentiator of Android was the whole openness and the open source nature of it. And so
exactly.
that's how blockchains work too, right? So in a way, there's lots of similarities actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what you did was exactly similar, but the industry was different. It was Web2, and it was also one of the early initiatives, right? Back in days, Android, it actually opened up a lot of ideas for the Web2 industry, right? On the whole, if you look at things now, iOS and Android are the two most big, massive players in the industry. So coming from that, I am sure Algorand is lucky. We are lucky to have you in the space, right? The Web3 community itself is lucky to have you in the industry. But I would like to see something here because you were CMO at Medallia, and you were also serving as a CEO of Rule AI, which is an early stage AI company, and you have been part of Blockchain Founders Fund, which is actually one of the good names in the industry. So, any takeaways from these sectors? What is your approach from sort of, let's say, when you handle a Web3 company, an AI firm, and also a venture arm, right? These are different entities, different narratives. So, any takeaways from this journey so far?
Yeah, so I that's a big question. I could probably talk for like half an hour going through each one of them. But let me take one example, like the case of
Okay.
Medallia, right? Medallia is a software as a service company focused on customer experience. And so if you've ever stayed in a hotel and you get a survey afterwards, like how was your stay, rate your stay, etc., that typically will come from Medallia. So that's what this company is about. And so I was the CMO there. And one of the key insights that I think is super relevant
Mhm.
here, I think in the blockchain industry as a whole, is
Mhm.
the idea of customer experience and consumer
Mhm.
experience. And it's an area that I think the entire industry still has to work on, because
Mhm.
it's just too complex for the average user, right?
Mhm.
Like we have a lot of like brilliant engineers, but like
Mhm.
you see that a lot of the apps are still built kind of from an engineering mindset, and I don't think we've kind of made that switch to be customer experience and user first focused.
Mhm.
And so I think that to me was the big insight, like from my Medallia days, I think. And I'm pushing hard for this. I think if you look at our Para wallet on
Mhm.
Algorand has made tremendous advances to become a lot more kind of user friendly. And I think those types of initiatives are really critical to really get to get blockchains to mainstream adoption.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely right. I mean, usability, user uh, ease of usability, right? I mean, that is one of the biggest blockers, I would say, in the space. And I'm glad that you are uh, being instrumental again in bringing that to the masses, right? I mean, I own Parawallet in my mobile phone, and
Great.
it's so easy to connect with the QR code and all. And I in fact, I own a few NFTs out there, the book editions that you launched back in days. So I can relate to what you say. So now, after having got all the experiences, now we have safely landed in Algorand Foundation, right? It enables an inclusive, decentralized, and borderless global economy at scale. So talk us more about the foundation. Talk us more about the initiatives that you do. Talk us more about
Sure.
the foundation in general. Yeah.
Yeah, so the foundation is a nonprofit, and the role of the foundation is really to nurture and grow the ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
of people developing on the Algorand blockchain. That's kind of our main mission. And if you want, there's multiple components to that. Like one, of course, is developer focused, right? We want to create the easiest onboarding path for developers. So we focus a lot on creating the best possible developer tools, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit more around Python, for instance. Um, we organize boot camps and hackathons, so we basically create all of the necessary infrastructure to kind of help and ease the onboarding of developers. So that's really one component. Another big component is around governance, right? Like the foundation is tasked with basically putting together like the right governance structure so that the community gets involved in all the decisions that we've made. And so, for instance, we've over the last year, we've basically pushed all of the grants making to the community. Like rather than the foundation making decisions about grants, we've actually pushed that all to the community. So now the community is deciding on who basically gets the grant and for how much. And so that's the governance part. And then of course the third part is more around the technical standards, the protocol, making sure the protocol is as decentralized as possible, and like pushing forward towards that as well. So those I would say are the three key components of the roles of the foundation.
That's really good. I mean, I've seen plenty of projects that launched, and they were not able to focus on key elements with foundation, right? And I'm really glad to know that you have fixed a set of goals, sort of fixed a set of mission statements that you work upon, right?
Right.
And I'm really sure that you are helping out various projects through this Algorand journey. Could you name few interesting projects? I mean, it's not a shill, by the way.
Okay, so this
It
is
is
my
just for
so that's my
information.
favorite topic, right? There's so many. We have such a vibrant ecosystem. It's just like
Mhm.
so many projects that run on Algorand, and so let me give you a few in like different categories, and they're
Mhm.
all kind of like built around this notion of like real world scale, because really that's what Algorand is about. Like we enable blockchain solutions at real world
Mhm.
scale. That's kind of like core of what we do, and so we have so many projects that kind of fit that example. So let me give you a few. Like
Sure.
real world asset tokenization is a big one these days, right? Everybody's
Obviously,
talking about this. So we just
OWA.
announced at
Mhm.
our big developer conference last week, we just announced
Mhm.
that Aberdeen with Archex is tokenizing one of their money market funds on
Mhm.
Algorand. And what's unique about this is two things that's unique about this. One is the trading of the tokens are
Mhm.
done in EURDs, which is the digital euro. It's not a stable
Oh,
coin. It's like a fully digital euro, and
okay.
that's a unique feature that was launched on Algorand. And then
Okay.
the second thing is, as you know, Algorand has like atomic swaps that are built into the platform. And in this
Mm-hmm.
particular case, if you want to basically change, sell, trade
Mm-hmm.
money market fund, atomic swaps are really important, right? And so it
Mm-hmm.
enables that feature as well on Algorand. So we're very excited about that. And we have lots of projects in this kind of real world asset tokenization
Mm-hmm.
space. We have Lofty that is
Mm-hmm.
doing real estate, fractionalized real estate. So you can be a homeowner for starting at the share of $50. We
Mm.
have
Okay.
TravelX that is doing creating a secondhand market for airline tickets. So
Mm.
this whole as
Okay.
like category
The
of real world,
Travelex, you mean the biggest player on the market?
it is. I think it is. Yes, yes.
Ah, okay.
And
Okay.
so it's super exciting to see like all the I think they've minted over. I forgot the exact number. I think it's over 8 million tickets by now. So
Mm.
so it's super
Wow.
exciting to see, and so it has huge
Mm.
benefits for airlines and for
Okay.
passengers alike. So
Okay.
that's kind of like a nice little area. That's like the whole category of the real world asset tokenization is a really big area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the second one is payments. Like
Mm.
HesaPay is a
Mm-hmm.
company that is working with the World Food Bank to deliver cash assistance to families in need in Afghanistan, and they're using a blockchain for that. And
Okay.
so, and this is real stuff. It's not like a promise or anything. It's happening like every day. And so
Okay.
people basically get money directly from the United Nations and the World Food Program directly on their phone. They can go to a store,
Oh.
they can buy stuff, and so it's a cash assistance program for
Mm-hmm.
distressed economies and families in distressed regions. So that's kind of the payments bucket, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more there
Mm-hmm.
as well.
I mean,
Um,
with the amount of turmoil that is going on, Afghanistan, a country like Afghanistan, what you are doing to that country through Algorand,
yeah,
impeccable job, right? And
yeah, and
anything else?
we just announced the Humanitarian Council, which is a partnership with WorldPay, UNDP, Circle, etc., to really like double down on this idea of cash assistance, because that's where humanitarian aid is moving towards. It's all moving towards cash assistance because the people that need the resources,
Mm-hmm.
they know best on how to, what resources they need, and so everything is moving towards cash-based assistance, and blockchains will play a critical role in doing so. And so very happy to be part of that humanitarian council and
Cool.
driving that initiative forward.
Cool. I mean, from assisting in cash for these countries to travel tickets, minting over several million tickets,
Yeah.
and the RWAs, right? I mean, people were talking a lot about real world assets. In fact, governments started talking about it as well in recent times. But to know that you have the infrastructure ready to adopt, right? That is important. So
Right.
I'm really glad that Algorand has that. But I would
And
like to
another big
understand.
area, by the way, another big area is supply chain. Like we have so
Oh,
many companies, and of course, everybody already like when you think about immutability of a blockchain,
mhm.
of course, supply chain comes to mind. I mean, we have so many companies in supply chain. I mean, just last week, Finboot, a European
Mhm.
company, decided announced that they're moving from Ethereum to Algorand,
Oh,
and they're a big supply chain company focused on the oil
mhm,
and gas industry. And so I
mhm.
think we now have probably I think around 10 supply chain companies with active
Oh,
projects, whether it's like oil and gas or it's food based or is agricultural. Like there's so many different supply chain companies that are operating on Algorand
oh,
and doing this at real world scale.
oh, wow. I mean, definitely, I won't be asking the reason for their move from Ethereum to Algo because you have already answered that on the ad. So not talking about that here. But I would understand uh, from a dev's perspective, right? Can we discuss about devs developing smart contracts on Python? Python is obviously one of the widely used programming languages these days, and how they're able to do that and link it to Algorand blockchain. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think this is for us, this is a very exciting opportunity. As you know, the blockchain industry is still very much of a niche industry. When
Mhm.
you look at the data, there's about 30,000 active blockchain developers, which is not a lot if you compare that to the 8 million Python developers. So it's a really big opportunity. And so we've focused a lot of energy and John Woods is our CTO, and his team have done a tremendous job actually in building a Python on-ramp. So we now natively support Python on Algorand, and so we're the only one in the industry that
Mm-hmm.
supports native Python. And it's not lookalike Python, it's not similar to Python, it's native Python. So it comes like, so if you're a Python developer, you can use
Mm-hmm.
all of your tools, the developer environment that you're used to, and you can start developing smart contracts on Algorand. And so it's a really big opportunity for us. And so we're really doubling down on that. And so and we're doing everything we can to kind of on-ramp Python developers. Not just do they have the right tools, but then we give them the
Mm-hmm.
education, we tell them the why. And given everything, we briefly talked about AI,
Mm-hmm.
given everything that's happening with AI, I think a lot of Python developers are becoming more open to develop on blockchain, because you look at the traditional Web2 environment, it's
Mm-hmm.
becoming tough to be a Python developer, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Google is letting people go, Amazon is letting developers go.
Mm-hmm.
So what Web3 does is that it gives you control of the software that you make. You own what you make. And so for a Python developer,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good time to think about moving from Web2 to Web3 and start
Mm-hmm.
applying your skills to
Mm-hmm.
projects where you can be in control as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
working for somebody else. And so we really think this is a massive opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, millions and millions of Python devs. I mean, this is a great news for all those million Python developers out there. So thanks for this alpha. So I would advise all those Python devs to check out on this probably after listening to this pod. So now moving on to that fun
Algorand.co, Algorand.co, that's where they can go,
and
and they
that's
can
you.
go download AlgoKit, and they can create their first smart contract today.
For sure, for sure. I'm sure there will be a few after this pod. I mean, I'll probably ask your team about any new spikes in there after the podcast goes live.
Yes.
Just kidding here. So moving on to that fun part, right? I mean, you talked about the devs, you talked about the blockchain and initiatives from the foundation. I would like to touch upon the Algorand Global Hackathon, right? What's the idea behind that, and then what is the plan with the
Yeah.
global?
So when we think about like um, um, onboarding developers,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's quite a bit of kind of educational effort that's required. So we developed that as this whole funnel. And so there's a lot of like self-serve content that people can just go like read our documentation, look at our YouTube videos. But then we
Mm-hmm.
also have structured boot camps where people can come and they can participate in sessions and they can discuss with our specialists. And so they can start actually working on some projects. And then those boot camps will then funnel into
Mm-hmm.
our hackathons. And so our hackathons are organized on a global scale. And so
Mm-hmm.
we help people to form teams, we help people to crystallize their ideas. There's multiple tracks that they can participate in. And those hackathons, we just finished one actually. And those hackathons there's a DeFi track, there's an interoperability track, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a consumer track. And so people can self-select which track they're on. And we have specialists from inside the
Mm-hmm.
foundation and outside the foundation that then help and evaluate the different
Mm-hmm.
projects. And so that's how it works. So we did one. We just went through that funnel the last couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
and we announced the winner at the
Mm-hmm.
Cipher last week.
Nice.
iConnect is the winner. It's
Oh,
super cool. It's a decentralized
nice.
peer-to-peer consensus delegation platform. It's like a
Oh,
it's like a
sounds
lot of work,
interesting.
but as we go into like node incentivization later, and we'll talk about that.
Uh,
This is an
so
important step.
what's the name of that startup? Just come again.
I go protect.
Okay. I will
I go
protect.
protect.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
that's the hackathon. So the first,
Mhm.
and then we basically do the same thing again in the second half. So we'll do another series of boot camps and then hackathons
Okay.
later on
I
this
mean,
year.
I mean, obviously the community would be excited to take part in the next one. I mean, it's unfortunate that you just finished one. So when is the next one planned? Any rough estimates on when
Yeah.
is the
So
next
the
one?
next hackathon will be planned in Q4.
Q4. Okay, so it's not so far. I mean, already we are into Q3, so Q4 is not so far. And obviously, you might have seen a lot of interesting projects, right? So to select a winner is obviously a tough thing. So could you please walk us through the foundation incubation program as well? Because you have a foundation, you have that incubation part as well, where you help a lot of hackathon projects and handhold them to become a successful venture, right? So
Yes. Yes, and so the incubation program is the next step after the hackathon. So I talked about this whole funnel approach. So the incubation program is the next
Uh-huh.
step. So once you've participated in the hackathon,
Uh-huh.
you can then join us in the incubation program, and that's an 8-week program where we basically help people kind of um, really turn their ideas into
Mhm.
a company and figure out how do you create a company, how do you create a team, how do you
Mhm.
ideate on the idea to find the right product market fit, and then
Mhm.
at the end, like the hope is that we can introduce them to investors and seed
Mhm.
investors and actually help them actually get some money to actually develop their ideas further.
Okay, so is there any limit for getting into that incubation program, or is it just the winner who gets in there?
No, it's multiple companies in the. It's not just for one company, so it's multiple companies that participate in the hackathons that are invited to
Okay,
join us in the incubation program.
okay. Any prerequisites, any requirements to join that, or is it part of the hackathon funnel?
It's part of the overall funnel that we've laid
Okay.
out. Yes.
Okay, so startups and builders who are watching this, obviously, you should give it a try for Q4, which is not so far. So watch out for the hackathon plus the incubation program
Right.
that the foundation is running. So we have talked about a lot, right? Over this last 15, 20 minutes, we have talked about a lot. And I definitely want to touch upon that wonderful advertisement you guys pulled off. So if anybody didn't get a chance to watch that ad, please go to Algorand handle or please go to Twitter or YouTube. Just search for Algo's latest advertisement. Obviously, I'm sure it pops up right in front of the search algorithm. Please talk about that.
So just to give context for people that haven't seen it yet, so
Yes.
as I mentioned, we're all about real world scale, and we wanted to kind of get that idea out and then apply it to like a supermarket checkout, and like what would it mean to pay with algos versus paying with Ethereum, paying with Solana,
Yes.
and paying with Bitcoin. And so we had 4 checkout lanes, and so once one person paid with each one of these currencies, and then of course bad things happen
Yes.
in the process, and you might guess what kind of bad things would happen if you
Yep.
try to pay with Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana. And
Yes.
so the funny or the unique thing about this commercial was that the idea actually came from the community. I was only
Mhm.
actually 2 weeks in my job, and somebody
Wow.
tweeted to me and said, "Hey, Mark, serious idea. Here's a script for a commercial. You should shoot this." And I look at this and like, this is actually a pretty good idea. We should just go do this. And so I
Wow.
found, creative director and a producer who were willing to kind of help me do this. And then we actually reached out to the community and said, "Hey,
Wow.
wouldn't you guys be willing to participate in this? Because we're going to do
Wow.
this in a very scrappy type of way. We don't want to make this a Super Bowl commercial. It needs to be scrappy." And so
Wow.
we had two or three community members who participated in the commercial. So like,
Wow.
and then we launched it back towards the community as a community
Uh-huh.
project, and then they took it everywhere. Right, our community, like we talked about the Android army, our Algorand
Yeah.
army took it
Wow.
everywhere. We had millions of views in the course of like 1 or 2 days. And it
Oh.
clearly hit a nerve. Like the idea of real world scale and Algorand being the only one that is ready to meet the
Yes.
real world clearly hit a nerve. And the maxis on the other chains were not
Yeah.
very happy with it. But, you know,
I mean, it
it
is
was
what it
nice.
is, right? It is what it is, but you guys have pulled it off really nicely, right? I mean, when I looked at that ad, I was like literally laughing out. And since I am part of the industry, I can relate myself, right? I have paid hefty fees for a transaction. I have had transaction failures. So it was a witty ad, I'd say. And I'm really glad to hear that it was actually from a community initiative. I mean,
Yeah,
who would do that? So I guess the community would be tagging you and commenting on your profile more often now because they know that you are watching them.
exactly. Hey, I'm open for good ideas come from anywhere, right?
Yeah,
So if I see good ideas, I'll just do
yeah,
it. Like and I'm
yeah.
not the owner of good ideas. They come from
Good,
everywhere.
good. I mean, when typically when Web2 people switch jobs or come into Web3, they take ample amount of time. They settle down. They look for what to do. But hearing that you have been part of the team for 2 weeks and you were able to pull it off, salute. Kudos to not just you but the entire creative team. And what is surprising to me is you also included the community on the ad, which I believe. I mean, I don't think anybody has ever done that at this scale.
And that was so much fun. People loved it. They say, "Oh,
Yeah,
like, look, Rich is in the commercial, and Barb is in the commercial," and so people just loved it. And so it's
yeah.
great. And Governor Hat came up with the script, and so
Mhm.
it's a community. It's really community initiative, and isn't that what decentralized means, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like we're in the blockchain industry. We're all supposed to be decentralized. This is decentralized marketing, right?
good, good. I mean, you are fully into Web3 the moment you stepped in to Algorand, the foundation, or the other projects. So kudos to the team, Mark. So I won't keep you long. So just one last question before we move into the next segment, which is a rapid fire. So before going there, I would love to understand the plans for the future, what's coming for H2 of 2024 and beyond. So talk us through the roadmap, Mark.
Yeah, so for the 2024 roadmap is well underway. Like we've done delivered a lot. Like Python was a
Mhm.
big item in our 2024 roadmap. For the rest of the year, the focus is really on two things. One is node incentivization.
Mhm.
So we're putting a plan together to actually incentivize node runners, and that's a really big initiative. And it's all about making the protocol more sustainable, long-term sustainable.
Mhm.
And the second part is also enabling peer-to-peer networking. As you may know, our network currently has relay nodes, very powerful relay nodes, and then consensus nodes. And the consensus
Mhm.
nodes talk through the relay nodes. So we're going to switch to a peer-to-peer environment, so consensus nodes can talk to each other directly, which improves, of course, the decentralized nature of the
Mhm.
blockchain as well. So those are the really big initiatives that remain for this year. And then as we think about next year, we basically want to start supporting more languages beyond Python. So TypeScript
Mhm.
is a big one that we're going after as well, and we'll be
Okay.
launching native support for TypeScript
Mhm.
early in 2025.
Okay. I mean, you're opening up. Looks like you're opening up the whole horizon, right? I mean, the thing with blockchain is they usually ask you to stick to a particular language, right? I mean, look at Solidity, Rust, and so on. And whereas Algorand is opening up to Python, Python already has millions of developers, right, in the market, and you are opening up to other languages. Seems interesting. So for anybody who is building, who is a builder here in the space, watch out for Algorand Foundation. They are in good hands. That is something that I can definitely say and vouch for. And yeah, any parting thoughts, any last thoughts before we go into the rapid fire section, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, like to your point, we really want to meet developers where they are, right? And
Mm,
I think for blockchain to become mainstream,
mm,
it is not realistic to expect everybody to kind of adjust to how blockchains work. I think our approach is very different. We want to achieve mainstream scale, real world scale, and to do that, the way to do that is to basically meet developers where they are, and have us support all the tools that they require to be successful. And we think this is the right way to go, and so we're very excited about that.
awesome. Same here. I am excited as well. So let's move into the final segment of the podcast. So this is like a rapid fire section. You can give me an answer within a minute. You can take up to a minute. It is not exactly rapid, but you still have a minute to answer. So let's go. So what's your favorite activity, Mark? I mean, I know that you're in Europe. So what's your hobby? What's your favorite
I'm not in
pastime?
Europe, actually. I'm in Silicon Valley. I grew up
Oh,
in Europe. I grew up in Belgium,
okay.
but I live in Silicon Valley now.
Okay, so I have another question for you later on. So first,
Oh.
what's your favorite activity?
So, having immigrated from Belgium to the US, my favorite activity now is I bought this old kind of 1980s Airstream motorhome, like a classic,
Oh,
like Airstream, like, all aluminum kind of thing. And
uh-huh.
so renovating it is my main hobby, and
Wow.
specifically turning it into like a complete smart RV. So I have it fully decked out with like,
Okay.
I don't know, 50, 60 sensors, all powered by Home
Wow.
Assistant. That's my little passion project.
Okay,
And it
that
has an
sounds good.
Algorand wallet address. It's called beastie.algo.
Oh, so Algorand looks like Algorand is everywhere. I'm sure it will be in your blood as well. Cool, cool. That's really good. So, who is your biggest inspiration, Mark, outside of the Web3 space? Because we have talked a lot about Web3 so far. I would want to understand, do you like somebody outside the space? Have you been
So
inspired by someone?
so it's not a person. So it's not a
Okay.
person. So I think I get my biggest inspiration, and this
Uh-huh.
may sound geeky like Silicon Valley-ish, but it's true. I get my biggest inspiration from this event called Burning Man, which is a
Oh,
global event. Like it's a
okay.
fascinating event where people come
Mhm.
together, they build a city. There's lots of
Mhm.
art, there's lots of creativity, lots of gifting. I
Wow.
think it's just a phenomenal event that really I come back from that event inspired and
Mhm.
wanting to be more creative. And so
Wow.
that's my biggest inspiration point.
That's an interesting answer that I've got from all of my guests put together. So I would definitely be interested in visiting this event probably when it happens next time. But thanks for that. And now comes the interesting part. So what's your favorite city and why? You cannot answer the city that you live currently,
Yeah.
and,
So
and
actually,
not the hometown as well.
yeah. So I just came back from Barcelona. Like we had a developer conference in Barcelona, and that has to be my favorite city. I think the combination of like food, like I mean, there's like a food mecca. I mean, the architecture. We went to visit the Sagrada Familia. It was just spectacular. The weather is great, uh, and it's close to Ibiza if you want to go party. So,
Yes.
so I mean, Barcelona really is up there as one of my favorite cities to visit.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was also there recently, so I can able to relate what you were saying. So it's absolutely one of the stunning cities that I have ever visited. In fact, the famous cathedral, right? I forgot the name.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah,
marvelous
so beautiful.
architecture, right? So beautiful. Yeah, yeah, cool. So one last question. So if you could have chosen a career which is not into Android or not into Web3, what would it be and why?
I think it'd have to be something creative. I think it'd be like, I don't know, maybe like an illustrator, like person who makes drawings and
Okay.
stuff. So I have a good friend in Belgium, and he's a pretty well known illustrator. And so he just actually, if you look at the New Yorker's cover of this week,
Uh-huh.
he's basically doing the illustration for it. It's
Oh,
super cool. That to me feels like an amazing job. Is to be super creative, invent
correct,
something from nothing, and yeah,
correct.
I probably something along those lines.
Oh, cool. I
I
mean,
wouldn't have the
totally.
talent, so I wouldn't necessarily be on designing covers of the New Yorker, but not sure if I have any talent in that area. But like I would try. I think something like really creative. I think would be very cool.
Good, good. Cool. Thanks a lot, Mark. Was a pleasure talking to you over the course of last 30 minutes. It was an absolutely great podcast. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
The pleasure
So
was all mine, VJ. Thank you for having me.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mark. Any last words for the community or the listeners that you wanna just drop? Any alphas, if I can ask?
Algo fam, like we're the Algo fam community is a community, and so lovely to be part of it. And this is going to be great. This year is going to be great, and looking forward to working with them for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that you will be able to replicate what you did for the Android army. I'm rooting for the Algo fam now. Cool. Thanks again, Mark. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you. Take
VJ.
care.